Welcome to the Sandwich Tolbridge Fund Museum and Archive Committee. If we can move straight to section 1, apologies for absence received. Do we have any?
Thank you, yes. So we have apologies from Councillor Black, who has an illness. Councillor Paul Carter has a travel commitment. Councillor Dinbury has a work commitment. And Councillor Mark Morehouse has another meeting he's had to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to confirm with all those absences, we are quite irate.
Yes.
Right. And going on to 3, declarations at number 2, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Don't think we have any. No. Number 3, public participation. A 20-minute session, I don't see anybody, is set aside for members of the public to make representations at the meeting in respect to the business on the agenda. Individual representations should not exceed 5 minutes. Written notice of the desire to exercise the right to speak, together with the topic to be addressed, must be given to the town clerk at least 4 hours in advance.
No requests.
No. Number 4, minutes of the Museum and Archive Committee extraordinary meeting. Members to receive and approve minutes from the Museum and Archive meeting which took place on the 7th of March 2025. A decision is required. Do we have any comments before, or do we have a proposer? Proposer and a seconder? And a seconder, and if we can vote on that. I think that is unanimous. Right. And moving on to number 5, update on museum operations. Members to receive an update on museum operations. That's attachments 2 and 2A. And can we have any comments on this at all from anybody? Councillor Anderson?
Well, I was wondering, the winter figures look relatively bad in terms of comparison with the previous year, and I wondered whether the museum manager had any thoughts to why that was the case.
So is this January, February and March?
Yes.
Yeah. I think 2024 is actually when the Leave to Land exhibition was in downstairs, I believe, around that time.
Yeah.
And then also there was an event, the Medieval Centre had an event, and we also had a small temporary display in relation to that. So I think actually what it is really is that last year figures were quite a lot higher compared to this year. So they were sort of higher compared to previous years. They were fairly low, but then again, if you sort of compare, I mean, obviously I don't have the years prior to that, but I think actually that this year's 2025s were probably quite standard, and it's that there was a boost last year.
It's interesting, if there is a correlation, and it doesn't necessarily mean causation, but if there is a correlation between temporary exhibitions and better numbers, that's an argument that you could use in future.
Yes.
So I think we might take a look and see whether that is an argument that will.
I think it does draw people in with the temporary exhibitions.
Sorry?
I think it does draw people in.
Well, it seems to be the case from what Millie's saying. So, but what I'm suggesting is that we take a closer look and see whether you can actually make that argument.
The usual argument for temporary exhibitions is that more of the collection is being displayed that perhaps isn't usually displayed. So the people who have visited once, maybe twice, are more likely to come back again. So you get an increase through repeat visits, which is a key kind of issue, I think, in the museum. I know from our visitor data, most people that visit, I think, have not visited before, and quite a few people, which we talked about before, visit from the local community. So actually, if we had new things for them to see, they would probably come back as repeat visitors. But I can have a closer look at the
I mean, it may
other
be,
exhibition
sorry to
data.
go on, but it may be that, I mean, in particular, the Leeds Land exhibition attracts people from further afield. It's just possible.
Yeah,
And
most
if you
of
can
our-
find that from data, that would also be interesting.
most of our visitors are from further afield anyway.
Yes.
So they usually, I think, outside of the county, and then a lot of people from abroad as well. So I think that is the majority of our visitors anyway.
It would be worth having a look, because it is quite striking how different those figures are. Not minus 471 in January 2025, and as I remember it, I mean, it sounds as though I'm talking, because I have an interest, a particular interest in the Leeds Land exhibition, but it does, because it was in January 2024, it does look as though it might have had really quite consistent.
Yeah, it probably did. Yeah.
I know we shut on Mondays and Tuesdays, but we seem to get a lot of visitors in the town off the cruise ship to Dover. I was on a Monday, and I just wondered if every, perhaps in the summer months, 6 months through the summer months, if you can get extra volunteers to say perhaps or just try on a Monday.
Yeah, I have thought about that. I would quite like to trial another day. It's just working out how it's managed, especially. Well, you'll see later on it mentions volunteers, which you will know anyway because you get my emails. But yeah, I think at this moment in time it's not ideal, but it's something I'd like to do.
More volunteers,
Any other comments from anybody? If I can have somebody to propose. Thank you, and second, that's Councillor Robertson and Councillor Ripley. Second.
Yeah, thank you.
And vote on that, sorry.
Thank you.
Not enough just to propose one. Yeah, that's unanimous. And number 6, accreditation report return. Members to receive a report regarding the museum's accreditation return. That's attachment 3.
Could I
That is
explain?
over to Millie, thank you.
So our application has been sent. So it takes they can take up to 6 months to respond. We probably will, ideally will there'll be someone assigned to the application who will contact me within those 6 months. They might have some queries or some other questions for me to answer. They can also request that they visit the museum to see, so there's some documents they don't need me to submit, but they might visit and then ask to see that they are in place. They can also ask to see how our collections management procedures are carried out and demonstrate that that is happening correctly, because that's quite a big part of the work. I just, in this report, I wanted to flag a couple of things that are just my concerns, which are that we do have quite a backlog of collections management work that has developed since the last application. So it means that those standards haven't necessarily been maintained, and this is how I would expect things to be, if that makes sense. So it's maybe open for interpretation, but for what I would expect. It's not uncommon to have a backlog in museums, but they also, when you submit your application, you are agreeing to terms and conditions that you maintain the standard, or that you meet those, the kind of areas of work that they require. So that's not to say that they will have a major issue with that. It might be that we have areas for improvement, and obviously we've got all of the documents in place, I think, that quite thoroughly demonstrate the plan to deal with that work. But I just wanted to flag it so that the committee's aware of it, in case they do come back and we have a slightly less positive response than we hope for.
comments?
Yeah, I was going to say thank really for everyone and just know the report. Right?
Yes, if you want the report, as I say, thank Millie for what she's done there. We don't need any voting proposals. Do we?
I think, yeah, just to receive, please.
Or to receive, we'll just have somebody to propose to receive. And somebody to second. Thank you, Councillor. Seconding. Thank you. I think we're all voting for it. Yes, please. And that's the accreditation report. Number 7, collections management procedures. Members to receive a report about the museum's collections management procedures. That's attachments 4 and 4A. Do we have any comments? Councillor Fortescue?
Yes. Could I ask a question about photographing items? Are items such as the maces and the Roman bow, are they photographed, and photographs of these objects kept with details of the items?
So part of the inventory process could be to photograph items. It's probably likely that some of the collection is photographed and it's within the old records in the collection management system, which I can't access at the moment. But so at some point in the future we will probably have a project where we do photograph collections, but at the moment we're just getting the sort of minimum information that we need to meet that requirement. I don't think having photographs is a requirement of that procedure, so it is obviously a useful thing to have, but it's not a top priority at the moment.
I think the reason I ask is that if an item is stolen, it's very helpful for obvious reasons if there are photographs of the stolen item. And I could see that, you know, it'd be too expensive and perhaps unnecessary to photograph a lot of items, but if something is particularly valuable, then I think there is a case for having photographs of that item.
So there will be photographs of the items, not necessarily for that purpose, but in certain situations we would be able to supply a photograph to demonstrate what the item looks like. The priority items are also, be careful how I explain things for security reasons. They are also kind of noted more specifically in
the insurance
information and things like that. So they are likely to be specifically valued and assessed by someone as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments on this one?
I just wanted to add a sort of footnote to Councillor Fortescue's comment, and that photos are very useful in promoting the museum. You know, if we can show that we've got some really lovely and fascinating things here, as part of our
brochures,
that you know, really nice photos.
So perhaps in social media, I do try to share photographs of things. I think I do agree with you that that's a big project that again is just not, there isn't the capacity to do that at the moment. And the work that we're doing, especially with the collection, is it's the main priority. It's the work that the Arts Council are going to have concerns about if they're concerned about anything. So it's getting through this process first and then starting to consider these other ideas.
I was in the museum earlier on, and the chappie that does the tours, he said they're doing a promotional video and they're filming in the museum tomorrow.
Are they?
Yeah, so they'll be looking at yours, everything.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Yeah.
So if you're about, I'm not sure what time the town clerk probably knows, so perhaps you come down and get yourself a video.
Like that. What do you know?
I look forward to always coming.
Do we have a time, Rob?
I don't think it's been fixed. I think it's a period between 10 and 11:30, so I'm not sure when actually.
Yeah, it would be.
I think they should wander in.
You're missing your things in the courtroom.
Right, if we can have a proposer
Yeah.
and a seconder to note this, and a seconder, as Councillor Franklin proposing, Councillor Fortescue seconding, and it is unanimous. There we go. And number 8, museum signage. Members to receive a report about the museum's external signage for Chapter 5. And that's it from Millie again.
Yeah, just basically the response from DDC about signage for the museum. I've summed it up here anyway, but the response currently is pretty much that we stick with the current signage that we have. I've put a couple of suggestions here. That's all really.
That's it,
Pretty
sorry.
much in the report, so.
Yeah, and Councillor Ripley?
Yeah, I was somewhat horrified to see the response from DDC, which I thought was appalling. Hasn't taken into account anything that you've said to them, Millie, at all. Did they come out and look, or is it just their usual doing it from a distance?
So I would say the person who I contacted does have an idea of what the museum looks like from the outside, but they didn't visit. Well, those specific details. So they have visited the museum before, but they didn't visit for this purpose. So, it was a case of obviously it's a listed building. It's I think the main thing which I've written here. Yeah, so it would distract from the historic character. And then other suggestions were advised, which we've already really have. The main issue for me is when the entrance to the museum gets hidden because of the height of the signage.
I would suggest that we ask this person to come when there's an event going on, and they can see for themselves, because that's completely inappropriate.
Haven't got a clue of that.
No,
You've
not
got to wait
I
for them, innit?
probably
Not
have.
at all.
I might have some photographs, not from across the road, but from the museum entrance to show that you can't, because we can't see what's happening in the square if there's gazebos and things like that up against our.
I think they
So
need to come and see,
that would
because it's
demonstrate
just,
that.
their response is really poor.
No, I'd like to comment about about 30 years ago we had the town trail done, with John Bradford's mayor, shows how long ago it was. But when they had the notice board down there, it was end on to the medieval building, so if you was over by the shops over the other side of the square, if you took a picture of the medieval building, all you saw was a black path. Now they put that smack in the middle, don't they? So they don't seem to be following their own instructions, do they? That new notice board there, that modern thing, that's right in front.
That's appalling.
And there should have been sideways on, I believe, like the old one. And also, a lot of the things are on this, and the photographs, they've got this as the photograph of here as the courtroom, haven't they?
Yes.
For my just my opinion on the signage is that what I really would like to avoid, and this is why having a sign that is up high would be much better, that's brighter, is having multiple signs that don't quite do the job, and so we just have a lot of small, which we kind of do have at the moment, but a lot of small signs that aren't really working. I'd like, it would be good to find a suitable solution that means that we don't have lots of different types of signs.
When I was on a Sunday afternoon when I was still volunteering down there, a chap came in who's been in Sandwich about 37 years, he thinks, and he said it's the first time he'd come into the museum because he'd never noticed it before.
Yeah.
I look out for people like that too.
So when we put that,
I raised that, and I think the response was to, it might be useful to consider where the museum is doing its marketing. I think that was one of the responses that I had, but I did raise that as one of the concerns that we had.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a totally acceptable.
That's right.
Yes, I know I thump on about this I think at every meeting, but particularly in the winter months, I really do think it's important that the museum looks as though it's open. And that can only be done with regard to the volunteers' health and safety, health particularly, with an additional set of doors, glass doors. And that would make a difference, I'm sure. It wouldn't impact the way in which the museum is obscured when events are on, but it would have an impact.
I do agree. There's a few things to deal with. So the museum wall still hasn't had its maintenance work, so that I think should be dealt with because the door will be close to that space. The other concern I have, but again, we'd need a professional to come and advise, because this is just something that I'm thinking of, is that how we make it accessible, how assisted, something like that, which can take up more space, because we want obviously people in wheelchairs to be able to get through the door as well. So that is another concern. So it would be a case of consulting with someone. I have also in the budget for this year set aside hopefully a decent amount for maintenance, just to try and hopefully get the wall sorted and get some of those things sorted out. But yes, I agree. It would be really useful to have this.
And presumably there is funding. I mean, the Heritage Lottery Fund, for example, is that not? I mean, I'm sure there are other sources as well, and maybe you could get some local businesses perhaps to sponsor a door.
Yeah, I think there's a good argument for it. I think we could put forward a good argument for getting some funding for it. The other concern as well is actually that Dover District Council may have to be involved. I'm not sure, obviously because it's a listed building.
Yeah.
So it depends on how it's built, but obviously we'd have to ask them for comments as
But
well.
there are doors. I mean, St Peter's and the Waiting
Yes.
Room both have, perfect examples of how such a door might work.
I was going to just say, doesn't the museum have its own logo? Could we have perhaps a flag manufacturer and we have fly the flag? 300 days a year, it's empty, isn't it? Barren. Let's put on a flagpole and you fly the flag about 6 times a year. Because it costs a fortune to get it repaired. It'd be nice to have a flag up when the museum's open.
Yes.
With regard to the door, or glass door, or protection there, is that something that this committee can assist with, or is it something that you would leave on from the start?
I think I can lead on that to start with. I still think the wall is the first step, because I had thoughts about what we would use the wall for, and then obviously if the door impacts on that, then we need to consider how it, and we can't install a door if it is going to affect the wall, because the wall is not in presentable state, and we actually probably need access to it in case we get any further issues with water. So there's a few little pieces that need to be sorted out. I think the wall first, and then contacting some companies to see what could be done to get an idea of the work and cost, and then looking at how much money is in the budget and external funding. I think that would be the process, so it probably will come up at a future meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, can we go to, sorry, Councillor.
There is a small commercially produced map of Sandwich for visitors, which I've seen, but I can't remember whether or not it indicates where the museum is.
The compass one.
Sorry?
Compass map.
Yes.
Yeah,
Does it indicate where the museum
can't
is?
remember where I can't visualise.
Is that the one the trade is familiar with?
That's the next edition should.
Yes.
Should be.
So it seems to me that foreigners are able to find out about the museum.
Yes.
and local residents
They Google it.
perhaps not.
That could easily be another issue of they've been when it opened, when it was refurbished, and haven't been since because it hasn't changed. It could be that. Obviously, there are some people that the idea of a museum is just a barrier to them, and they haven't been interested. And in that case, that's the museum's job to kind of reach outside of the physical space if possible, to try and reach those people through marketing and things like that. And I think also perhaps people who are visiting for a weekend do more research into what they should go and see.
Yeah, because I was in the museum the other Sunday, the lake up in Oregon, apparently a descendant went over on the Hercules, so there's quite a interest in America, tracing their forefathers, so that could be an extra thing, couldn't it,
Yes.
But when we get everything sorted out and online and in systems.
Any other comments? Can we have a proposer
Yeah.
and a seconder? That's Councillor Franklin and Councillor Whitley, secondary. And we can just vote on that, that is unanimous. And number 9, museums at risk grant. Members to receive a report regarding the museums at risk grant and the IT system update. And over to you again, Lily.
Yeah, this is just a quick update that there were some delays, but we have received our funding now for this work, and Cloudy IT have been informed, so they're in the process of getting the devices for us and getting them ready. So hopefully that will progress quite quickly now. Like I said, there was a delay receiving the money, I think, but hopefully we're on track, and we'll have some new IT systems for the museum soon that are updated and much better connected to each other.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Anderson?
Yes, you mentioned in a previous discussion at this meeting about your inability to access previous records, which I have to say I found very disappointing. I mean, can you tell us what the problem is and whether it can be resolved?
So I can access them, but I cannot access them through our CMS, which is the collections management system, the software, because the server died. So I have got the data because I took it off the server. It's also on an external hard drive that was attached to the server. So we have got the information. I can't access it through the system that it was put onto. I probably can access it in other ways, but part of the process that we're doing inventory for is because that information is not really adequate to meet the standard. So
Okay, so it's unimportant.
it's
not
accessible when it will be used. It's not, we haven't lost a huge amount of information. It's just.
Any other comments? Yes, if we can have a proposer. No, that's Councillor Frank. Are you seconded, Councillor Anderson, and voting, that's again unanimous. Right, if we can go to number 10, date and time of next meeting.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Which is a short one, isn't it? It's don't blame me, I think others. So, date and time of next meeting, Wednesday the 23rd of July, 2025 at 6:30. And meeting closed at
6:59.
I think we set a
less than half